If you're a wine lover and about to build a custom home or do a remodel project and add a wine cellar to your home, this video is just for you. Because as a wine enthusiast, there's nothing like having a beautiful wine cellar to display your collection, and you're going to want to take care of that collection and make sure that it is refrigerated properly as well. So let's dive right in and start talking about what you're going to want to look out for when you're planning out your custom wine cellar. So, as with most projects, the first thing you're going to want to do is start planning. And the first thing I think that's most important is to make sure that the aesthetic of your new wine space is going to match the aesthetic of your home. And I call it a wine space because a lot of the newer modern wine cellars are not necessarily a cellar anymore where you walk in and you're in a room. A lot of them now are like glass enclosed structures that are actually part of the design of the home. So you're going to want to make sure that the aesthetic of it is going to start coming in line with the aesthetic of the interior design of your home. And you're also going to want to try to space plan it as well. The closer it is to an exterior wall, the easier it is for the company to install the refrigeration unit and have the exhaust go outside as well. To me, these are very important things because you will cut down on the heat that you feel from the exhaust of the wine cellar, and that's actually the appropriate way to install a wine cellar. And also it will cut down on the noise because the refrigeration unit will be outside of the home where your AC units and maybe your pool equipment are. So those are a few things you'll want to consider when planning out in the initial stages. All right, so the second thing you're going to want to think about is temperature and humidity control. For the most part, you're going to want to keep your wines between 55 and 58 degrees and in about 60 to 70% humidity, which means that in Las Vegas, it's dry and hot here, so you're going to want to have a climate-controlled space to achieve just that. Now, some of these things that we're going to talk about, if you hire a professional to install your wine cellar and design it, they're going to make sure these things are happening. But as a consumer, you're going to want to ensure that the steps are going to be taken because you're going to manage your own project. At least I like to, because I like to ensure things are done correctly. Just because they tell me they're going to do it one way doesn't necessarily mean they actually do it that way. So I like to supervise the project, so it's nice to know some of these things that I am talking about, although I realize you probably are not going to be installing some of this stuff yourself. So the third thing I want to talk about is insulation and waterproofing barriers, which will keep the temperature more stable and your humidity levels as well. So just like we talked about in the first thing about the temperature control and the humidity to keep your wine preserved well, you're going to want to ensure that this step is taken when they are actually installing the wine cellar. The fourth thing I like to think about is lighting. So because we're talking about wine and direct sunlight can actually destroy your wine collection, you're going to want to be sure that you're using some UV protected glass or that the location you're choosing is not in direct sunlight. But there are some other things that you're going to want to think about with lighting within the cellar itself. So if you have a room, the actual walk-in type of wine cellar, you're going to probably want some ambient lighting, something to make some mood within there, depending if you have seating where you can actually do wine wine tasting, or are you just grabbing a bottle and walking out? But the more modern types of wine cellars are these glass encased kind of centerpieces of a house design. And in those, there's all types of lighting. There's neon lighting, there's just some soft background lighting to just kind of give some accent that really can make or break your featured piece in the house itself. So really think about where you want to go with the lighting in your wine cellar when you're planning that out as well. Hi, welcome back to my followers, and if you're new here, welcome to my channel. My name is Lisa Lopez, and I was born and raised in Las Vegas. I'm a real estate consultant that specializes in luxury real estate, and I would love to help you on your journey. So if you have any real estate questions, feel free to reach out anytime, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Okay, let's get moving on to number 5. So the fifth thing that I think is really important, especially if you have one of those wine cellars that or a wine room that's more of a centerpiece of your home, is the racking system. So back in the day, there used to only be one kind of racking system you'd see. It'd be kind of like that wood crate looking system where the bottles basically went front to back, or sometimes you'd see them at an angle. But now there are so many different options. There's peg options, there's glass options. I had in my own wine cellar, I had suspended cables, which I'll get into that in a minute, but that's an option. There's options of storing your wine front to back, left to right, at an angle again, like I said. But there's all these different options that you really have to start considering as to what is going to look best to your eye. But be careful when you get into super custom things like these suspended cables that I just talked to you about. That was a source of contention with my own wine cellar when I was building it. And it was actually one of the reasons, besides the doors, that took so long in having the project completed. They were hard to install, there were errors. We had to reorder cables because of the errors. So be careful when you do pick super customized options, because you're going to want to be sure that your contractor that's doing the work is skilled or gets skilled before doing your wine cellar. And that's why, one of the reasons why too, you want to hire a professional. But the racking system is definitely something you want to consider, because it really becomes the focal point of your wine cellar or room. So the sixth thing is all of the surrounds. You don't realize how many materials make up the surrounding of a wine cellar until you're building it. The old-fashioned ones where you walk in, a lot of times those have the same cedar wood backing as you have in your racking system, or they have some landscaped painting on the wall or something of that nature. But the more modern ones, like the one I designed, tied into the rest of the interior of the home. But you're going to want to start thinking about what materials are you going to use. There's a back wall, there are side walls, and there's the flooring of the wine cellar or room. I really like when they use the polished river rock at the bottom, but that's only feasible when you have a cellar that you're not going to be walking into, because that could be very painful on your feet. I had my wine cellar lined in sheets of metal because I wanted it to kind of glow with some backlighting and kind of have like a golden glow. People use marble on the back wall. I chose old-fashioned brick and painted it white to match my fireplace. I've seen people use all different kinds of tile choices or ornate artwork painted on the walls. So those are some things you're going to want to start thinking about early on so that it can all start tying together with the design of your home. Okay, let's see if you've been paying attention. I have a pop quiz for you. I want you to answer in the comments below, and I'll give you a shout out in my next video to whoever gets it right first. Not all of you. Okay, so the question is, what temperature is the proper temperature to store your wine in? Is it A, 40 to 45 degrees, B, 55 to 58 degrees, C, 60 to 70 degrees, or B, 70 to 75 degrees? No cheating, don't rewind and look back, and put your answer in the comments below. So the seventh thing you're going to want to take into consideration while making all these great plans for all these beautiful finishes is the cost. And the cost varies depending on location, size, materials you choose, of course. So you're going to want to do your homework, get more than one quote, and remember, the purpose of a quote is not to necessarily get the least expensive contractor. It's to get an idea of what the prices out there are, and it's also your time to interview and do all your research on the contractors that you are getting bids from. I know I mentioned earlier that this list makes it sound like you're going to be doing the work on your own, but I highly recommend hiring a professional to do this. Even if you have a general contractor, which I had my general contractor actually build my unit that my designer designed. I did run into some problems going that route versus hiring an actual wine cellar company. But at the time, there weren't many wine cellar companies in town, and I was going to have to outsource it to Arizona, and I didn't really want to have to do that either. But if you do have to go the general contractor route, I'd recommend doing it that way rather than you doing it yourself. I've had some experiences with remodel projects or building projects that I didn't necessarily use a general contractor, and what happens is you end up getting the blame game when something goes wrong. So I'm just going to use this for example. If the cables have an issue and you call the people who installed the cables, and the cables aren't cheap, you might want to maybe say you spent $10,000 on the cables and now they're ruined and you need new cables. Well, the guy that installed the cables isn't going to take the blame for it and pay $10,000 for new cables. He's going to blame the last guy, and that guy is going to blame the last guy who blamed the last guy. So I hate the blame game. That's why I like to just either hire a company to do it or a general contracting company that takes control over the entire project. So take that into consideration when you are looking for the professionals and you are doing your interview process and the research. Or you always know how to reach out to me. My information is always in the description below. So I do have one bonus thing that I completely forgot about until I was actually filming this video, and that is the doors. Wine cellar doors are like the most important thing when designing a wine cellar, especially if you have one that you're walking into. Usually they're really pretty and grand. The ones on the more modern types are more of like a frameless glass, or like mine was a big heavy iron door with a lot of glass. But the wine cellar door is one of the most iconic things about having a wine cellar, and I can't believe I forgot about it when I was writing the notes for this video. But do your research and find you a really cool door, because I think that makes or breaks, for real makes or breaks, a wine cellar. And one last option that is becoming more and more popular is the standalone wine tower refrigeration units. And the reason why I say this is becoming more and more popular is because I'm seeing them in more and more custom homes that I sell. And I have heard now from the builders that they're having more requests for these because you have more control over multi-temperatures within the refrigeration units. So if you are a wine drinker that likes whites and reds, you can now properly store those wines without having to, usually you end up sacrificing your white collection to be stored at the temperature of your reds. But those standalone units prevent that and give you the option to store them all at the appropriate temperatures. And some of them even have multi-temperatures within one unit. But I've seen multiple towers installed in place of an actual wine cellar. So that is another option out there if the whole wine cellar thing just isn't really your vibe. In summary, remember to choose the right location, design, size, lighting, and materials when planning out your new custom wine cellar. Cheers to building your new custom home, and thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you check out one of the videos around me for more design inspiration. I will see you next week on the next one.